Good evening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the news on Hilaal TV. But we're not doing a normal news bulletin. This time we're doing a very special interview. Now, on Sunday, Pope Francis had said that there needs to be an investigation into genocide that is currently occurring in Gaza. This is ahead of his book for the Jubilee 2025. And many of the issues he spoke about was what is currently happening in Palestine. He also underscored the importance of respecting human dignity. The book was released in Italy, Spain, and Latin America yesterday and will follow on in other countries. Joining us now to discuss this, I'd like to welcome no stranger to Hilaal TV, Reverend Chikane, who is the chair of the South African Anti-Apartheid Steering Committee. Reverend, always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your listeners here.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Reverend, the Pope's speech, of course, I think we all know the importance with regards to the Pope and what he carries in terms of, world status. It was quite a strong message, wasn't it, in terms of saying, look, there's genocide in Gaza and there needs to be an investigation to what is currently happening there right now.
And, this is a very extraordinary statement. I mean, the churches have been slow, like other religious groups, slow to deal with this matter of the genocide in Gaza, simply because the Zionists have done their good work. They've gone into the churches, they've put pressure on religious leaders, they actually muted them. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. And the Pope has been the one who took a step further all the time. I mean, he said that there was genocide in Gaza when no other religious person said that. I'm talking at a global leadership level. And now he's taken another step to say, investigate it. That's a bold statement. As you know, South Africa arrived there last year already made a decision. We must take Israel to the International Court of Justice and make a case that they are actually committing genocide live. Since we started the end of last year, beginning of this year, I mean, Israel has proven itself to be a genocidal state. There's nobody who can doubt it, those who see it on live. I mean, if you're American and CNN doesn't show you, or Fox, you won't know. You will support the Zionists and think that the Palestinians are a problem. But in fact, what's happening now in Israel, Palestine, is that the right-wing Zionists are carrying out their old mission of eliminating Palestinians, taking off the land, making their own. That's what they are doing. Either, according to some of them, Palestinians submit and subject themselves to this regime, which is apartheid regime, or they leave or they die. And because the Palestinians are not submitting, they are killing them. And not many of them are leaving because they feel that this is their land, this is their home. They can't be wiped out of it. So the Pope has taken the correct position. I'm pleased that he has stretched the demand to say investigate this. But, I mean, the investigations have been done already. You know that the UN has got all the information. That's the information we are using at the International Court of Justice. I think the Pope has just fallen short of saying the Vatican is going to be part of the countries that are pressing on the charges against Israel. Because remember, the Vatican is like a state. It is a state.
Yeah.
It's a government. I mean, they've just fallen short of doing that. And I'm hoping that Vatican will take that position ultimately.
The irony of this, Reverend, is that obviously it happens in the Vatican City, and the Vatican City is in Italy. Now, we've seen swaths of Italian citizens obviously protesting in terms of their solidarity for Palestine. But the Italian Prime Minister has been very candid in her support for Israel in the last few weeks. And it is quite ironic that this is happening within that part of the country. And it brings the question with regards to the Western world, because the religion of the Catholics is really quite a very strong religion across the world. If I stand to be corrected, it is the largest religious group in the world. Maybe you'd correct me on that, Reverend. But obviously, a lot of it is within the Western world. You get a lot of it in Latin America, which is the global South. But from the Western world, are they going to heed his words, given that this statement is something that probably the Western world were not expecting from Pope Francis?
No, I mean, they didn't expect it. They hoped it never comes to that stage. You are correct. The Catholic Church, it's half of Christendom, if you have to put it in that way. They're half of the Christian population of the 2 point whatever billion. They will be half of that. So they are huge. They are present almost everywhere. On the African continent, it's almost most of those countries. Many of those countries would have half of the population being Catholic. In Latin America, huge percentages. Even in Europe, where you have Anglicans, Lutherans, but you've got the Catholic Church present. So the statement he has made is fundamental, and it will shake the Western, the foundations of Western ideology, which is really colonial, racist, and does not treat Palestinians as human beings. You would have seen some of the people President Trump has appointed. I mean, it's people who don't even believe there is such a thing as Palestine or Palestinians. They are thoroughly racist. And I think the stand of the Pope will make a difference. And I hope that all the Christian entities will take a stand. Let's marginalize Christian Zionists amongst us, because Christian Zionists are the problem, who are supporting the Israelis to carry out this genocide against Palestinians.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Reverend Frank Chikane. We're going to be speaking about, obviously, the Pope's Jubilee for 2025 and what it includes in terms of its discussion on what is currently happening in Gaza, but also how this will shake the entire globe in terms of solidarity for Palestine. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm still in conversation with Reverend Frank Chikane, who is, of course, the chair of the South African Anti-Apartheid Steering Committee. Reverend, earlier this year, of course, when we had the South African Anti-Apartheid Conference that happened in Sandton, Pastor Munter Isaac was, of course, a pastor that is currently still in Gaza. And when I had a discussion with him, a lot of the talk was how in the last year, this genocide that is happening has really not become one of an Islamic supposed take on things. It's changed it from Islam to Judaism to Catholics to Christians, even including Hindus and Buddhists. It's galvanized all the faiths together. And the Pope's message is probably, one would call, the cherry on the top of how the world's religions are getting together to say, what is happening in Gaza cannot be tolerated.
Yeah, no, the Zionists want the world to believe that this is a Jewish Muslim conflict. They actually don't want the world to know that when you bomb Palestinians, you also bomb Christians. And I think Gaza is the one that has exposed them to the extreme, where, they bomb Catholic churches, they bomb Catholic schools, they bomb Catholic hospitals. The Catholics have facilities that serve the people, the Anglicans, the Presbyterians. And so they didn't want the world to know. In South Africa, people get shocked. They thought this thing is not about Christians. And then they realize when Munta is here, the Reverend Munta Isaacs, and he says, but we are victims as Christians there. When they bomb, they don't say, are you Muslim or Christian? They bomb everything because it's madness. And so I think the world is beginning to see for what it is. And those who are Zionists or Americans who are really Zionists, I mean, I'm amazed how the leadership in the United States are just thoroughly Zionists. We have Zionists here in South Africa. But I mean, you can't talk to a Zionist. A Zionist does not recognize a Palestinian. They don't even think they have rights. They think they've got the right to kill them. And when the genocide happens, they think it's the right thing. And that's why the United States keep on supporting them. And I think what the Pope has done is to really take a stand, because the Pope has said he has to pray with those Christians in Gaza daily basis, check how they are, how many have died. It must be very painful for a leader like him. Actually, at one stage I said, why doesn't he fly in there, go into Gaza, go into the border and ask them to open up, come here to be with my congregants. I think it is high time now that all the religious leaders in the world come together with all the Palestinians and take a stand together so that this is about the world. By the way, that's why we planned the conference in May. That's why we are launching the South African chapter of the anti-Apartheid movement, because the anti-Apartheid movement, which supported South Africa, became a global movement. It went across religious interests, it went across gender issues, it went across the politics. The key issue was racism is a crime against humanity. And we must say that what Israel is involved in, it's a crime against humanity. And humanity must stop it.
Reverend, another interesting fact to point out from obviously a passage in the book that the Pope has spoken about, he speaks on, of course, that there is going to be a growing number of refugees that are going to come. And of course, this would create various diasporas. It's going to create, obviously, anti-refugee sentiment, especially in Europe, where many refugees, whether they're from Syria or Palestine, are going to go to Europe right now. And what we're seeing in European politics is a complete shift towards the right, which does not, obviously speak of anything positive in terms of how world politics is going when we talk of Europe and the West. This is going to be a test for many religious leaders within the West, isn't it? Especially when you have, Catholic leaders and Christian leaders. And a lot of them are also starting to speak out against the genocide that is happening in Gaza. How fearful should we as the world be that as conflicts continue to occur, destruction continues to occur in the Middle East, refugees are going to make this move to Europe, and it's going to have an anti-refugee, anti-other color besides white sentiment that's going to happen?
Yeah, but I mean, you just have to look at the support they give to Israel. My view is that the world is going on a reverse gear. It's becoming more primitive. You have to be a primitive generation of human beings to kill people the way they are doing. I mean, to have kids walking in the street without arms, bleeding, and there's no ambulance that can help them, there's no hospital, there's nothing. And that child has no parents, the parents are dead. And they keep on bombing and killing them even more. I mean, you can only have to think about primitive days. But we forget that these Western people and the US were colonialists and remain being colonialists in their minds. They never treated the world as human beings. They went to Asia, the United States, they were the Americas, they went into Africa and committed genocide. That was not recorded. We've been doing research now about how much genocide was committed on the African continent over those times, but nobody reported about it. So there, the World War, First World War was caused by Europeans. Second World War was caused by Europeans, and they brought the Americans into it, and they grabbed the colonial people to be dragged into it, died for nothing. And it's the same Europe that's causing the war in Ukraine, is the same Europe that supports the war in Palestine. I think because you can't do it in Nigeria without anybody knowing. It's live, everybody can see it. The world is beginning to turn against them, and the majority of the countries in the UN have taken a stand. And when the US remains being alone with 2 or 3 countries voting and vetoing peace in the Middle East, then you realize they are getting more isolated. And I think we should do that. And the Arab states, which were pacified, put under threat, make them to have a fear of God when they think about Palestine. Their own people are beginning to say, hey, you can't do that. Our people are dying there. You can't govern us and support Israel. And I think there's going to be a radical change within the Middle East as people take a stand. And in Europe, the same is going to happen. In Britain, this right-wing movement will need to be stopped because it's a racist movement. And there's nothing else that we can do other than unity amongst the rest of the world to take a stand against the powerful. I mean, they are busy almost courting a nuclear war in Ukraine, Russia. I mean, the way that matter is handled by the superpowers. I mean, just the decision to say, use the long-range missiles to hit at Russia. You can't do that when people have nuclear weapons. The next we're going to see, it's a distraction for distraction's sake. But these are the people who claim to lead the world. And we need to take a stand and say we're not going to lead by people like this who are primitive, who can watch genocide happening and do nothing about it. I mean, it's still amazing that no one's doing anything.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you, Reverend. The last thing we want is, of course, a nuclear war. Reverend, of course, next week is the South African Global Anti-Apartheid Conference that's going to be happening. From a South African perspective, you know, just a few weeks ago, the memorial was filed at the ICJ. It's still continuing even under the new International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola. This conference will, I'd have to say, it has to, you know, really solidify South Africa's solidarity with Palestine and really put South Africa on the map of really leading what has been quite a landmark case for this year, isn't it?
Yeah, no, this is not an ordinary conference, by the way. Somebody was saying we are tired of conferences. This is not ordinary. Since May, we consulted with every South African sector you can think of. We went to the religious interfaith faith groups, SACC, which has the majority of the churches in this country. We went to the Muslim Judicial Council, the TISA, which is the Evangelical Alliance, which historically had people who supported Zionism and are taking a stand now. We've brought the African independent churches who use the word Zion, and the Zionists exploit that and make them look like they support Israel. We've gone to the major trade union federations, SAFTU, COSATU, and they support fully this. And then we've talked with the South African Jews for Palestine.
Yes.
And that brings the Jewish community, both religious and non-religious, to take a stand like they did when we fought apartheid. And so we are mobilizing everybody in this country. It's not just an activist organization. It's the people of South Africa will be coming together tomorrow. We've invited all the parties in parliament which support Palestine. Of course, it's no use inviting those who oppose that. And so we'll have political parties, we have trade unions, we've got religious people, we've got grassroots organizations, Palestinian Solidarity Group. This is a movement of the country, and it will show that it's not just government that has gone to The Hague and charged Israel for genocide. It is the people of South Africa. And we're taking this stand to mobilize civil society all over the world. So we are saying we're providing the leadership because we have experienced apartheid here. We've had an anti-apartheid movement. We want to have a movement in the world that will make even the government of the United States find it difficult to continue supporting Israel, because the people of the United States, which happened with apartheid in South Africa, is the people in the United States who forced Congress to adopt a sanctions bill against apartheid South Africa. That's where we are going. And they can't resist the pressure of the people. In the Arab states, the people will take it on. All those who support Israel or America or are captive to the influence of America will have to loosen themselves and support justice. And I believe it's going to happen. No injustice like this lasts forever. There's no kingdom that has lasted forever. There's no oppressive system that has lasted forever.
Reverend Chikane, always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. And I hope that those who are listening will support us in this campaign. Thank you very much.
No, absolute pleasure. That is Reverend Frank Chikane.